Please welcome Sarah.
Hello.
Sarah, it's so good to have you here, and it's been so good for all of us to hear some of your wisdom and hear little snippets of your musical journey along the course of this week. Thank you for making the time after a busy day of teaching to talk even more to us.
Thanks for having me.
So what we're going to do is I'll ask Sarah a few questions about her recorder playing, other places that music has taken her. And then at the very end, we'll have time for some questions from the floor. So if you have a burning question or something that comes up along the way, we might have time for that at the end as well.
Yeah.
So Sarah, you've done many things in your career. Why recorder? How did you initially come to the recorder? Where did it all start?
It felt unavoidable, really. I think I started recorder like most people. I was about 6, and actually my mum started teaching recorder at my primary school. She plays a little bit of recorder, but very quickly I told her, go away, I don't want you to teach me anymore. So I came up with the recorder through my local music service. They had a Saturday morning recorder club, and I just went there, and that was it. I learned music through playing flute and piano. Those were my proper instruments. And I was going to have a very sensible career as a doctor. And age 17, I had the luck of getting an amazing music teacher at my high school, Miss Jackson, and she was so encouraging, and I had no idea that music could be a thing. Oh, sorry, I'm also talking to you, aren't I, Hannah? I don't want to... In fact, I had 2 teachers. Miss Jackson was running the music department and really encouraging me, and Mrs. Morse was one of our long-standing English recorder enthusiasts. So she just kept supplying me with music, and I started to feel like maybe this is a thing. But I said to Miss Jackson, but you can't study music, can you? She said, yes, you can. I said, but I can't play recorder. Yes, you can. So on a whim, I decided to go along to an open day at the Conservatoire and was just bowled over by this fantastic magical place that I found, and I did an audition and somehow they let me in, and that's how it started. And I felt I felt very, very certain from then till now that music was what I needed to do, and I didn't even think about the flute and piano. Sorry, flute and piano, left them in the dust. I felt very strongly that the recorder was what I wanted to play, and luckily the gamble has paid off. It turned out to be the right decision, but it has always felt like part of me. It's always felt natural and what I just want to do all the time.
Yeah, sure. It's such a lovely refrain that's come up again and again this week, this theme of teaching and learning and enabling people to do other things than they might have imagined. So in your recorder career, after that kind of university phase, you've managed to really branch out into lots of diverse areas, particularly balancing early music and contemporary music. Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe how you began playing lots of contemporary music and then how you've managed to balance both in your career?
Yes. So my first years at Conservatoire were like a voyage of discovery. I was just learning about everything, all of the early music. And then actually, the person who I'm going to talk about now knows, I don't know if he's here, but the person who's responsible for all of this is Mr. Ben Thorne. As a 3rd year, I was flicking through a recorder music catalogue, as one does, and I saw this piece for bass recorder and live electronics. I thought, what? Yeah. I thought, what is that? And I got my hands on a copy, and this just blew open my tiny mind. I got some help at the Conservatoire to play it from a whole host of teachers, and just the possibility, the experimentation, the sounds, the creativity, everything about it I just found so fun. So with contemporary music, I never look back. I just love the voyage of discovery within every single piece. So that's something I chose to concentrate a lot of time on when I, after studying in Birmingham in the UK, I went to Amsterdam, and there was lots of contemporary music there, so I really threw myself into that, which was great. And since graduating, a certain number of years ago, well, 12 years ago, I felt like I dived down to the bottom of the deepest trenches in the ocean to discover everything I could about this contemporary music. And then I needed some time to breathe, and I came up for air, and I remembered, oh yeah, what brought me here in the first place? This early music that I fell in love with as a teenager. And that was like a new voyage of discovery. So then I feel like now I'm at this wonderful balance of the early music and the contemporary music, and how they inform and they feed each other. So I guess now I'm wondering what the next voyage of discovery will be, because apparently they just keep coming and coming.
I'm really curious because I think 2 days ago in the interview with Anna and Chris, we heard quite different perspectives on what they love about their early music journeys. Different musicians have quite different perspectives. You talked about how it was this voyage of discovery, coming back to early music. What is it for you that's the thing that draws your heart to that?
I think in one sense it's the harmonic language. So I have a real physical reaction to the music I listen to, especially harmony. I have it in pop music as well as early music, and there's something about Baroque music, Renaissance and medieval music that physically hurts in a good way when I listen. And I just love playing it, the consonance and dissonance and the tension and release. So it's how it sounds, but also how the fact that I can create that sound myself. I just love how it sounds. And then to be able to have that as an extension of yourself, it's really cool.
I mean, that's kind of the best reason for playing music, right, is how it sounds.
Yeah.
So they're musical worlds that are quite similar, but also quite different. So if you think, for example, in your performing career, you've performed with Jaboa, your kind of experimental band, then you've also performed with the Royal Wind Music, Renaissance, Recorder Consort. Do you think that those very different, yet also in some ways harmonically similar musical worlds inform each other, or are they totally separate for you?
Oh, they certainly inform one another. Yeah. So that's one thing I like about being an early musician. We have the music as like a starting point, a blueprint, and from then on there's so much creativity, responsibility, ways to learn and to humble oneself and to reach for something new. And in these different separate styles of music, they will have a different context, which is really important and interesting to learn about, why and how it was composed, and a different musical language. So I love relating that to technique. What am I doing with my tongue? My technique class will know all about that from today. What am I doing with my expression or ornaments? But the process and maybe the end goal is very similar. Yeah.
That leads me well to my next question. So you also have a teaching job as a professor, teaching mostly contemporary recorder.
Yeah.
So when you teach your students, the recorder is an instrument with really strong historical roots. So how do you balance that with teaching contemporary music and bring that kind of balance to your students as well?
That's a really good point. Well, a nice thing is that I can also jump in on early music with them, so we can talk about both of those things. I think with the contemporary music for my students in particular, I'm also teaching them the context and the history of contemporary music, reaching back to the 1960s, which relates back to the early 20th century, which relates back to earlier centuries. So I see it as a continuation rather than something separate. And then I'm also teaching them to be musicians, to be responsible musicians, artists, expressing the piece in their way, not only mine, but with a solid technique. So it's like an artist's toolbox to create their art. So in that sense, it's a continuation, and they have to be aware of the different styles. So yeah, we think of all of these periods of music as very linear because they've happened one after the other, but it's a bit more like, I don't know, being in between lots of islands? No, or maybe lots of subway stations and you can travel between them all.
Yeah, I love that vision that you've given of kind of creating a space for your students to become their own artist. And I feel like that reflects well, maybe you would disagree or agree, your own musical journey. I know on Monday night we heard you perform Steve Reich's piece Vermont Counterpoint, which was very much, you spoke a little about it at the concert, a musical journey, your own kind of creation or spin on his creation.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit more about what that experience was like for you?
Yeah, definitely. So I started with this piece because I listened to it and I really liked it. I just wanted to play it. But I had many failed attempts, as I think I said. I had to make the tape myself and I did so many versions. I really had to learn how to do all the technical recording work. It has all these repeated samples. So the first version I did, I would play the sample in and copy-paste. But then it didn't sound great. It didn't sound alive. So in the end, I decided to play each one through. So it was a lot of trying and failing, and getting it wrong and trying again. And now, if I listen to my backing tape, I did that in 2018. There's lots of things I would change and do differently if I did it today. So, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be one perfect version. I like to say it's today's version, not a forever version, which is slightly different when recording a piece of music, but but yeah, I learned a lot from it.
That sounds amazing. So kind of, if you take the today version, what do you see happening next for the recorder more broadly? So how do you see the recorder evolving in contemporary music? That's a big question.
Oh, that is a big question. Well, I mean, something is important is that we can't do all of this on our own. So I'm seeing the recorder more and more in collaboration. One of my focuses that I love is mixed chamber music, so recorder with other instruments, with electronics, but also in theatre, in pop music. It's used a huge amount in film music at the moment, concertos, so we're seeing the recorder really becoming integrated into the wider music world.
And are there particular ways, because your own performances have been described as fresh and surprising and explosive, so you're also kind of, it's a special quote. How do you personally, so if it's about you right now as a performer, how do you continuously keep pushing the boundaries of your own performance practice?
This is my particular feeling today. When I say pushing the boundaries, I spent many, many, many years trying to push the boundaries. And I've also come to realise you don't have to push boundaries, so you can also coexist in your happy pond. But in terms of a performance, I just want to, I want to have the feeling that I have the music, and in that moment I'm expressing exactly what I want to express, and that can be different from day to day. And it's alive, and I'm just enjoying it, and the audience are enjoying it too. So I guess that's what most musicians kind of want.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I felt like that almost got easier when I stopped worrying about trying to push boundaries and do something new every time. I was like, I can just also enjoy the things that I've loved for a long time.
Yeah, sure. We can't have you up here on stage and not talk about Team Recorder. Most of us know you from Team Recorder.
Yeah.
So Team Recorder is your YouTube channel. It's been a huge success. There's over 200,000 subscribers. How did it start? Subscribers. That's what I was trying to say. How did it start?
So it started, I was watching far too much YouTube, basically. I was a couple of years out of graduating and just watching YouTube and thinking, But the main thing is that I just can't stop talking about the recorder. And I thought it looked really fun, and I saw a need. So I saw a definite lack of any decent information about the recorder on the internet. I searched on YouTube, there was nothing. So I just thought, okay, well, I'll have a go, I'll make a video. I like the process. And that first video, I posted it on Facebook, and it got a lot of positive response. So from that moment, I thought, okay, let's do this every week. And I did it every week for 5 years. Then I learnt a work-life balance. Big applause. But yes, it was a mix of really seeing the need. And For me, coming to the recorder relatively late, I mean, I had my first lessons when I was 17, trying to get into the conservatory, and the woman who gave me a lesson took my mum aside and was like, if you send her in like this, they're going to laugh at her. Luckily, I went in anyway. But I felt for a long time like I was very lucky to be in a position where I could study. And there are so many passionate recorder players around the world who I've met who haven't had the access, geographically, financially, access to teachers, to knowledge. And it made me actually quite angry that all of this fantastic information is often only accessible if you study a music degree. And in the Netherlands, where I live, in the UK, music education is being decimated. So part of it was, okay, this information has to be freely available. So it was a mixture of the need to put the information out and the excitement to just do it and talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much content there. So it's such a brilliant resource for the recorder community. But how do you decide? Because there's videos on everything from historical performance practice to very specific techniques. So how does that go for you?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I made videos about what I felt safe talking about, which was contemporary recorder technique, and gradually branched into less familiar topics. So I feel like I've honestly learned as much in the past 9 years doing it as when I was studying. It's forced me to keep studying. From a really practical point of view, I listen to the audience and I try and alternate for different areas of my audience. So there might be a technique video, a repertoire video, an instrument review, a funny, silly video, an in-depth, nerdy video. I'm always trying to, which is actually, in terms of YouTube, a really bad strategy. Well, for social media, the way to really grow is to find something that works and rinse and repeat. But I would rather go for a really solid resource and community than 6 million followers. So yeah, it's just kind of, now it's a case of looking like, what haven't I talked about? What do I want to talk about? And yeah, and if I'm stuck, I just say, hey guys, send in your ideas, and then...
and then you sort it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I love about Team Recorder, it is really a beautiful online community, and I think you've done an amazing job of creating a group of people around what you love, the recorder, what we love. What's the most rewarding piece of feedback you've really received from that community?
Easy. That is whenever anyone says that, oh God, it's already serious. Whenever anyone says that they got back into the recorder or back into the recorder, and especially when they say, okay, because of Team Recorder, I found a teacher, or I've joined an ensemble, or I've come here, or I've brought an instrument, that's just, it blows my mind, because I make these videos in a closed room alone and then press publish, and I don't see any of that. So to hear that it actually makes a difference every single time that happens, or I get a message or I meet someone, that's like, okay, let's go, wow.
Yeah, it's such a precious thing. I have that image of musicians kind of popping up all over the world. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I look at my statistics sometimes, and there's something like 196 countries Team Recorders pops up in. And I've heard from people, I live in Alaska in a village with 3 people, or I can't leave my house because I can't get out of bed. And all of these people can access music education. That's why now I do it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It's so good to hear about that vision.
Yeah.
And really, you know, you've developed something not completely on your own. There are other people doing similar things, but around the recorder, around online music education, that is a really very, very important resource. Do you see that online forum as part of the future of music education? What contribution do you think it can make?
I think it's really important, and I think it's an unmissable part. I think real life and online have to coexist. So I wouldn't want either to replace the other, but it's so important for accessibility, for community. Yeah, I mean, my favourite thing is, I have to say, real life. Giving concerts, teaching, meeting people face to face. But I think it's wonderful that the online world can facilitate that. And I think hopefully, I would like to see it lifting. I mean, there's many negative things about the internet, but I see in this way, this is a really positive element.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that balance with in-person events is really important. You've also helped coordinate in-person events, like the order conferences and educational conferences. So in terms of that educational context, what, for you, if you could name one thing, what would be the most pressing issue in music education today? What's the thing that we really need to be thinking about?
Well, I think the most pressing issue in music education is funding. Sorry to get really deep, but that's something really horrific going on, at least in the UK and the Netherlands where I'm going. And just a general devaluing of the arts. So what I see at the moment is the arts, in the Netherlands, it's a leftist hobby. But don't worry, if the arts are defunded, we can put on a DVD. That's what our Minister for Culture said during COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a devaluing and saying as well, the arts is good because then it can prime your brain for the STEM subjects, which is such a shame. So I think just of the valuing of the arts is just so important on a financial level and just the public willingness and perception of it. So, sorry, that's a bit of a big answer, but yeah, that's what I would say.
I'm going to put you on the spot with a big question that's not that we haven't prepared earlier. It's easy, I think, in that context of arts organisations being defunded, really, in much of the world, to be despondent. But obviously you've made the choice as an artist and as an educator to keep going. You're still making art, you're still teaching others to make music. So what is it that keeps you going? And for all of us here as musicians, what is it that you think that we should do, what gives us hope to kind of keep playing?
Well, I think the recorder player mindset is perfect for this because I and my colleagues, we went into this career not expecting an orchestral full-time position or saying, oh, we can get extremely rich and famous, or even I can make a living playing weddings every Sunday or Saturday. As a recorder player, you go in knowing you have to find your music, find your collaborators, find your repertoire. We are really creative people. So even the recent round of funding cuts in the Netherlands, I've seen my orchestral colleagues online saying, oh, well, tell me one person who hasn't come up through the Young Orchestra programme. And I'm like, talk to the early musicians. So just not saying that an attitude is having a positive mindset is going to solve a systemic problem, not at all. But that's what keeps me going. In terms of how to solve it, I honestly don't know.
Maybe keeping on going is part of solving it if we all just keep playing. So you had this really broad career, right? You have kept on going. You're teaching and you're playing, you're producing online content. How do you personally manage to stay creative and motivated to keep on producing art?
That's a good one. I mean, I've had to really learn to find a work-life balance and find rest. I always say you can't be creative without rest. And I do have it might not seem like it, but I do rest a lot. I definitely have the tendencies to be a complete workaholic, so it's something I've had to learn the hard way and still learning. But yeah, it sounds cheesy. I just take time off and spend time with my family and friends and go for walks in nature, and I read sci-fi, and I have very healthy obsessions outside of the recorder. The 90s sci-fi show, The X-Files, and Taylor Swift. They're my two big... Yeah. So, yeah, sometimes you need a bit of time off as well. I'm a Swiftie, yeah.
So when you're not watching The X-Files, is there any upcoming project or concert that you're excited about and preparing for in the upcoming year?
Yeah, well, I've spent the past year being a hermit working on 2 books. I'm sorry, this seems like a plug for these books, which slide is. But I'm releasing My Favourite Melodies 2, which is for alto. And I've also been working, it's very exciting, I'm quite nervous, a beginner's recorder method for Hal Leonard, which is the main US, so it's aimed at the US market. So that's been a huge learning curve. So everything has been focused on that. And after that, my plan is to have some time to rest and then actually think about working on another solo album, because I just felt like I want to make some music for me. So yeah, there's my aims for this year. Last year, my New Year's resolution was to learn to cook really good scrambled eggs. And I'd like to have a frivolous New Year's resolution that's going to make my life better. So if anyone has a suggestion for this year, then I'd also like to hear about that, because I'll add that in.
Yeah, I did the scrambled egg one too one year, but I don't know about this.
Yeah, we should share tips.
Hey, you've done so much already. Is there any personal or professional goal that you haven't yet reached, something that you'd really love to do?
Yeah, I would love to play a concerto with like an orchestra. I've never done that. And I'm a bit of a diva. I want to stand up there in a big dress with an orchestra and be the soloist. Yes, I'd like to do that. Yeah.
That's amazing. People who saw Bodil on stage, I can manage kind of channeling that energy.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah, so much. We might turn over to the floor if there are any questions that people have for Sarah. We don't have a roving mic, so I might just point to people, and if you can just call out your question in a loud voice, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Judy from Western Australia. On Team Recorder, you have addressed to a certain extent the stigma that Recorder has in the community. I think it's possibly worse here in Australia. What can we do about this?
I think be unapologetically loud as recorder players. Just by our presence, be like, yeah, I play the recorder. And I'm not afraid to challenge people. If they say, oh, the recorder, play, then I say, no, like, it's a proper, kind of, I rise above that. And really, from my position and platform, I make sure that if I work with a media piece, it doesn't happen that often, but I say, please, can you not open your article or piece with, we all know the instrument that's tortured our ears at school. I'm like, please don't be lazy. I know that you want to find a relatable point to connect with your audience, but try and think of something else. But just be unapologetic and proud, and that would go a long way. Oh, sorry.
Are there any concertos for recorder?
There are many concertos for recorder. Many, many, many. I have a YouTube video called Recorder and Orchestra, but there's many more being composed all the time. I believe that Chris performed Moonchild's Dream. That's a beautiful one. Oh, Chris isn't here. There's a wonderful CD by Michaela Petri. She plays a lot with orchestra, and there's more all the time. One thing that was wonderful in the UK, we have BBC Young Musician, and we had a recorder finalist, and there was a new concerto by Graham Fitkin. So yeah, absolutely. And of course the Baroque ones.
Sarah, you talk about early music, and then you talk about contemporary music. What about in between? Is there anything in between?
Oh yeah, I mean, I say it as just continuing. Yes, we had a lull, let's say, but there's lots of evidence to say that to show that recorders were popping up. We have our kind of relation instruments, the chakan and the flageolet, that were being used, and then we actually have early contemporary pieces by composers such as Hindemith, had a famous trio. There's evidence to show we've got a little recorded ditty with Ligeti, Benjamin Britten. So it's not like there was nothing. And
do you personally have that in your repertoire?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I say try playing everything, definitely. A famous piece that recorder players like to play is Syrinx by Debussy, for example. And there's many, many recorder players, in particular Nick Tarasov, for example, at Mollenhauer, who does a lot of research into 19th century music. So there's a lot there. And I think as recorder players, we've also learned, just because it doesn't say recorder, 4 descant recorder in C at the top of the music. That doesn't mean we can't play it.
Hello.
Hi.
How did you go about starting making YouTube videos? Did you have some sort of training in that, or did you kind of just go, I guess I'll click a button and record myself on my webcam, and I guess I'll try and edit it?
Yeah.
Was there a particular program, etc.? Like, can you just talk a little bit about how you started that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd like to start by saying I've always done all my videos myself. I hear a lot, who films your videos? Who edits them? Is it John? No. So my first videos had a budget of €10. I bought a phone stand and I filmed myself sitting on my bed with my iPhone 6. And then I used iMovie, and I just kind of learned how to do that myself. And I would watch other videos and I would copy the way they cut between, it's called jump cuts, where you have those quick cuts between frames.
Okay, recorder, of course we play.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. The zoom. There's all these little YouTube things. You zoom in and out. All these visual tricks. And over the years, I've gradually learned how to make it better. After a while, I bought a camera. I invested in a better editing program. I have to say, I'm not really that. They're pretty basic. My videos. Videos on YouTube today are full of like B-roll, that's like extra shots and animations and
because they need it.
different angles. Yeah. Well, mine are like low key, but I'm still terrible with cameras. I don't know anything about that, but I just want to talk about recorders.
They're very effective and they're really good, and that maybe the simplicity is part of their appeal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyway,
Yeah, but
if you had any training or if you just kind of trial and error.
just figured it out as I went along. Yeah.
Listed skills.
What is my skill set?
Yeah.
If I had to list it,
Would that be possible even?
oh yeah, let's see. I mean, this is, by the way, this is true of every professional musician. We have to be a performer, an arranger, a researcher, a teacher, a composer, an improviser, a marketer, a booker, an international tax expert, which is what I had to learn. I had to learn how to film and edit videos, networking, organising rehearsals, booking spaces, applying for funding. And I mean, this is what every professional musician today, I don't want to say has to do. I mean, I also do it because I love it. I don't mind sitting with my accountant and getting into the weeds of the Google terms and conditions so I know what to do with my Irish income from Google. Yeah, so the skill set is vast as a musician, but it's fun, it keeps it exciting. Yeah, makes my brain light up.
Hi Sarah, I've heard you referred to as the Taylor Swift of recorded lady. How do you respond to that?
What was the last part?
How do you respond to that?
What an honour, what an honour. I have to say, sadly, I'm not a billionaire, but yeah, but that's lovely. I love Taylor Swift, but also I like that in her career, but I'm talking about Taylor Swift, she keeps changing her musical genre. She's gone through country, through pop, through folky indie. She keeps reinventing herself. She's also done wonderful things like standing up for artists' income on streaming services. She's a very powerful person, and there are a lot of ways I wish she would do more, but I think she's a great role model.
She's the Sarah Jeffries of the pop world.
You're all too kind.
I have one question, but I just want to thank you because you're so enthusiastic. You just exude personality. It comes across on your YouTube videos, but to meet you in person and have you just share your enthusiasm, it's just been wonderful. So thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I mean, this whole YouTube channel, this would be nothing without the people watching it and taking part, so I should thank all of you.
Hi Sarah, I have a question about favourites. As a recorder professional, you probably have a collection of instruments. Do you have a favourite? As someone with a broad range of music tastes, do you have a favourite composer? And thirdly, do you have a favourite performance space?
Oh, they're all great questions. It's really hard. Instrument, it changes all the time. It's probably the one I'm practicing on. I do love my Ganassi soprano by Stefan Bletzinger. That's just phenomenal instrument. I love his instruments. Favourite composer? No. Taylor Swift. Yeah, that definitely changes according to who I'm practicing. And favourite performance space? I also don't know. They're really hard. That was probably usually the one that I'm performing in at the time. Yeah, sorry, that's a very vague answer.
Okay, so perhaps change the last question. What makes a good performance space for you?
Oh, well, a nice acoustic is really, really important. When I start to play and I feel like, oh, all of these musical ideas I'm practicing are just singing out. And where I feel like I have a connection with the audience as well. They're not. This is lovely because I can see you, you're not too far away. It's not my favourite acoustic, I have to say, but that's fine. And a welcoming one. I performed recently in a town called Haarlem in the Netherlands. They welcomed us with fresh, hot apple mousse.
Applesauce.
Yeah, applesauce. Yeah, fresh, hot applesauce. Because they'd had like a children's event where they'd made fresh, hot applesauce, and we'd arrived and they were like, here you go. And it's just lovely to be welcomed.
Sarah, can I maybe piggyback a little bit off Alison's question? I can imagine that with a performing career like yours, there might be many projects or groups that you've played with that are dear to your heart, but is there one that you'd like to describe for us that has had a particular impact on you?
Yeah, so I've been working with a group in the Netherlands called Resonate Productions, which is musical journalism. So this is a way of making a performance that also addresses, we call it the blind spots in human society, the emotional blind spots in society. So we did a project, for example, on millennial loneliness, like why millennials, why do we have it all but we're lonely? The one I've been working on this year is called For Real, and it's about the intellectual undermining of women. So it's sexism, but not on your appearance, but on your thought and mind and achievements. And the performance, it's been so dense, I have to say, it's not my brainchild at all. That's my colleague Andrea, who plays the harp and is incredible. She interviewed 14 women from all over the world, all generations, about what it means to matter. Because ultimately it's for all genders, not only women. And we have a performance where myself, the harpist, and our viola guitar player, and the audience sit around and we hear these interviews of stories and stories and stories, and we're playing music. And at 5 points in the show, we open the floor and anyone can come and be interviewed by us about their stories. And putting this together was like, well, what's going to happen? Will anyone come? Will it work? And while they're being interviewed, we improvise music under them. And it has been phenomenal. The premiere, I cried the entire performance. I now know I can cry without moving my face and while still playing. The tears were streaming. People just shared and shared. And we've had performances where one person has come and spoken and another has run out of the audience and grabbed the mic and said, I have to say something, where they've related the stories back. We've had generations of one family coming up to respond to one another. It's been very, very intense and beautiful, and it's really changed me as a person as well as a performer. And it sets the bar quite high because now I kind of expect every performance to have this deep and meaningful emotional connection. But it's been really wonderful. So I think this way of working that has been a way of finding a way to do something new and something meaningful, not only different for the sake of it, but we really want to open a conversation and have it continue. And I think that has happened.
Yeah, and just to give people a little bit of insight, how did the recorder come to be involved in that project? Because,
Well, like a lot of the projects I do, it's not about the recorder, it's about the artists. And I also say this, I love playing the recorder. You know how much I love the recorder. But at the end of the day, it's about being an artist. And if my arms fell off, I would do something else. I would sing, or I would play percussion with my feet. It's about an expression as an artist. So in a lot of the projects I do, I find that our collaborators, we put ourselves together because of the people we are and not 100% on the instruments we play.
And if you were talking to young people here who are kind of finding their own identity as artists, is there a piece of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I would say be absolutely unapologetically yourself. And whatever weird hobby you're into, just do that. I mean, don't change yourself for anybody. And if you think it's too weird, it's too boring, it's not cool enough, it's gonna make you. I mean, a big part of my earlier career that's kind of changed into something else is that I used to really seriously be a clog dancer, and that taught me so much. You thought I was cool. And I learned so much about performance, about rhythm, about dynamics, about traveling in the space through clog dance. And I got a lot of work because I could play and I could dance. So, I mean, I have to say I wasn't very popular in school, playing my recorder and watching sci-fi and clog dancing. But I didn't, I found my people, my friends, and I found what makes me feel alive. And you can't achieve that by doing what you think other people want you to do. Yeah. Yeah, so just be yourselves. Yeah.
More broadly, just thinking about the role of the recorder, often I like what you said, you're doing your own thing, but those things, clog dancing, maybe X-Files, the recorder. The recorder can be seen as quite niche, but more broadly, role as an instrument, do you see it playing in music education, and particularly as a tool for inclusivity, something that lots and lots of people can be involved in?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because the obvious answer is that we can buy a lot of school recorders for an affordable price and hand them out, and I don't want to discount that, because the recorder has had a wonderful presence in schools and education. I just think in order to do it justice, we need the training, the teacher training. So if every single school had like a Hannah in it, it would be incredible. The dangerous thing is when we have someone who's never had a recorder who goes, oh, this hand, and then of course we're going to think that it's rubbish. But I think something really valuable is its possibility for playing together. So this is what we've seen here. Big groups of people, all different sizes. The wonderful thing is you learn the recorder and we can then progress to alto, tenor, great bass, dark line. So it's a wonderful way of bringing small and large ensembles together as a community. And I think that's what we can really celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have time for 3 more questions from the floor before we finish. Right up the top.
One of the most exciting parts of music, for me at least, is learning a new piece and coming to understand all the intricacies and details about it, and then find your own interpretation of it. But with pieces such as the English Nightingale, which you learned much earlier in your recorded journey, how do you continue to find something new and interesting in it, and not kind of get fixed in the way that you are playing it and forming it that you learned much earlier?
That's a great question. So I think to recognise that you can also leave a lot of time and space between working on a piece. So I first got the English Nightingale when I was 17, which is 23 years ago now. And at the time I thought it was a piece of modern music. I was like, I love this contemporary work. And I had a version of it then, and I also studied it during my bachelor's. I had a new version, and in between playing it, it might be years, and then it's great. It sits, and it kind of, I change, and I get new insights, and when I come back to it, it might still be, but I've got a different idea of it, and that's wonderful. So I think it's just letting things rest and coming back. You'll have a new context, and yeah, you can do something new with it if you want, or you can say, I love how I've always played it, that's my comfort piece, and I'm going to do it like this, and that's fine too.
Are there 2 more questions?
Where's a country that you would like to visit and perform in that you haven't yet?
Ooh, that's a cool one. A country I'd like to visit and perform in. I'd love to perform in Iceland. There's a lot of cool Icelandic musicians. They're very hip and cool. I'd love to go there. And maybe Japan as well. That would be awesome. That would be amazing. And there's lots of fantastic recorder communities who I've not yet visited. We've got a huge recorder community in Taiwan, all over the world actually. So what I also want to remind people is that my video might be 12 minutes long, and it's heavily edited. So I see, I mean, I love it, but a YouTube video is like a performance. And backstage I might be like joking around, water, and then I go on stage and I'm on. It's the same with a YouTube video. So sometimes I release the footage in between where I'm like, and then I'm like, hi everybody, I'm Sarah and I'm a recorder player. And that's my performance training, I can just do that. But yeah, I'm tired most of the time. Yeah. But I get energy from what I do as well. And I've learned how to, after this week, which is for all of us tutors, I also want to shout out the other incredible tutors who are doing an amazing job this week. Yeah, we give it our all in every ensemble session, in every lesson, and then we go to the tutor's room and rest. And it is the same for me as well. Yeah.
I think on that note, it's about time to let Sarah have a rest.
Thank you.
I will say, before we finish, Sarah, it was such a pleasure to hear a bit more about your journey, and we're so thankful that you decided to pursue those passions that are particularly yours, that you decided to be yourself, and thank you for so generously sharing that with us this afternoon.
Oh, thank you.